What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Deckin Around. My name is Tyler,
My name is Steve.
and today we are super excited to have Lawrence Sullivan on the show. For anyone who does not know Lawrence is the man behind Legends playing cards. Absolute genius, absolute amazing magician. But I think this day and age, everyone knows Lawrence for his amazing playing cards. Even if you don't know, Lawrence is the man behind it. So I am really excited for this episode, Steve, to really get to pick Lawrence's brain.
Dude, I am excited too, and I am going to be honest. Legends is quickly becoming my favorite playing cards.
Dude, I'll agree with you on that one. Honestly, for the longest time, I think people have really loved USPCC, and not to say there's anything wrong with USPCC decks, but I've always been actually a big fan of the Cardamundi B9 Slimline stock.
100%.
But this year, Legends easily displaced my love for Cardamundi there, and I think they have not only really done some amazing stuff this year, but I think they've got a lot in the works for next year too, man. I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing is they're definitely always looking forward, trying to bring in new things. Yeah, I mean, I'm just excited to see what's coming down the pipeline from them.
Dude, no
But
doubt
we're going to
about
find
it.
out anyway because he's
We
here.
are definitely going to find out. And for anyone out there who's watching, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And please ring the bell. It helps us out a lot, and you won't miss any videos coming up.
Ready to do this, Steve?
I am ready.
All right. What's up,
Hey,
Lawrence?
guys.
How you doing, man?
Lawrence!
Dude, super excited to have you on today. Honestly, it's funny because for a long time being in collecting, like I knew of Legends playing cards, but I never knew of you behind the scenes until Steve and I really started getting into the production aspect of playing cards. And I love the fact that, you know, your origin story here is just such an interesting one and such a homespun one that has now turned into probably what I would call one of the top 3 playing card producers out there.
Yeah,
How
Thank you.
and before we get into any question, and the fact that the man behind a playing card company is on the show makes me smile. Like it's super cool that you're easy to connect to. Bravo. Like I respect
Okay, it's always
that.
fun to talk to fellow card enthusiasts. So you guys are what you're doing is amazing. So I've been a huge fan.
We appreciate
Dude,
that, man.
thank you so much. This is awesome. Jamie just said, "Can we call Lawrence the Law?"
Well, you can if you want. Yeah. The only
That's his
thing,
new,
I
the
don't
new nickname.
know Larry. I think it's a bit car mechanic-y, but
Yeah.
Lawrence or the Law or yeah, sure.
Larry's my stepfather's name. We're gonna leave that one out of this chat.
So Lawrence, for anyone out there who doesn't
Yeah.
know you, why don't you give us a little bit of background of you pre-Legends and then into how you got into playing cards?
Sure. So I grew up in Hong Kong, actually. I moved there really young, at the age of 3. And my dad was a banker. My parents were there. And this is when it was like run by the British, right? So it was really, quite colonial, I would say, back then when I was growing up. A lot of British schools and international schools. And it's still kind of like, not like the Wild West there, like the 70s and 80s, where it was like it would be a weird thing to kind of go to Hong Kong. But in the 90s, it was a cool place. And then it transferred over to China in 97. And I was there through the whole transition and back and forth between kind of school in the States. And then after college, I worked full time in Hong Kong, and I started as a magician, corporate magician. So, yeah, there weren't too many actually. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but I think you had Shin Lim on, and he probably would be the first to tell you that like Asian parents aren't the most conducive to that career path, right? Not that any parents are really, but so I was one of the few guys doing it in a relatively small city of 6-7 million, and
Relatively
but but it's only like 40 square miles. It's tiny,
right.
But yeah, and but there are a ton of corporate events. I mean, I worked with every major brand you can name, pretty much.
That's cool.
Like the LVMH group, Cartier, Louis Vuitton, watch companies, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, and they'd fly me all around Asia doing VIP events for their mainly for their store openings. And
oh wow,
and I was young, I was in my 20s, and like it was crazy doing like it just became like an amazing job actually. So I met like a ton of people. Like it was phenomenal. And I'm an average magician. I wouldn't say I'm amazing. Like I don't create much of my own stuff, but I read a lot and I practice and I do a lot of close up mainly card stuff.
Dude,
cool.
let's be honest.
Yeah.
Most magicians don't make up their own stuff. That like most performing
yeah.
magicians.
We're all hacks. Yeah.
Most of the big magicians on TV right now, obviously I don't know all of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but a good amount of them have people that do it for them and they show them.
Well, I mean, you have to have stuff. Even if you make up stuff, there's stuff from something else. So, I mean, you can combine stuff and make it creative. And, for me, it was just about like being able to connect with different types of audiences. So I worked for like a lot of bankers, like, and these are, like big wig type people. It's like, you can't just show up and you have to be like serious, but funny, but engaging, personable. The magic has to be quick and fast. You have to know when to leave. You have to know if you continue, and like different, there's different tricks you do for men and women, and they call them ties, like the kind of wealthy kind of, I guess like before influencers were around, the ties is like the wives of rich husbands kind of thing in Hong Kong. It's not a derogatory term really. It's just like it's just a thing we say. And then, so a lot of events like that. How do you do magic with someone that's, holding a champagne glass? You can't have them really pick and do stuff. It's awkward. So making it seamless and fun and quick. And I mean, they paid serious money for that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they have so much money, right? You have Louis Vuitton, a company like that, and you're like, oh, 20 grand. They're like, okay.
Oh yeah. I must have, yeah, easily. I must have done like 50, 60 shows for them all through Asia.
Yeah,
I think I even did a couple in Paris. Like, it's crazy.
It's so crazy the amount of money that they can just throw around. I have a friend who's a photographer, and he shoots for Apple, and he was shooting this event. It was an outdoor event. It was a soccer game for a publicity thing they were doing, and literally it got cloudy, which is perfect weather for photos.
For overcast. Yeah,
and they're like, we're not going to shoot today. We want it to be brighter out. So we'll pay everybody for today. Which
get the cranes and the lights and the
dude, like literally, like they're like, we're not going to shoot today. We'll shoot next week. We're going to pay everybody your day's salary, which for a big photography team is like 20, 30 grand for the day, and they're just like, they don't care.
Yeah, I have the funniest story. Cartier called me to do a VIP dinner / like store launch event for their high-end jewelry in Beijing. And they're like, it's a 2-day thing. We have 2 different sessions, like come a day early. We'll cover all you per diem and everything. And then I think they paid it was like 55 or 60,000 renminbi. So that's a lot. So like, it was like 15, 20,000 or something for like,
wow,
an hour each event or something like that. So, and this was like earlier on in my career doing it. And so I show up, and then I'm like waiting. I show up, an hour early, and got everything ready, cards and everything. And then no one's coming, and there's like 30 staff at this Cartier store. It's a beautiful store. And then there's this they have to have if they have high-end jewelry in the showcases, they have to have an equal amount of security. So like for insurance purposes. So then there's like 30 guys in black suits, like 30 staff, like all just kind of standing around. And it's like unprofessional to do a little magic for them. So I was like waiting, like, hey, the guest's coming, and like, oh, we told them, and it turns out like not one person showed up. Like they just like didn't confirm, or there's some issue. And then like it's like, okay, well, so it's like, and then at the end I did like one trick for the staff, and it's probably like the most expensive card trick of all time.
Well, that's dope.
And then the second day, a similar thing happened, and one lady arrived, and then I just did like 2 tricks, and like, all right, well, thanks. yeah.
You're like, can we do this maybe 3-4 times a week?
Yeah, I like this one. I'll stay for a while. Yeah, but I mean, I felt bad, but it's like, hey, well, it's not my fault your guest didn't arrive, so. But it was funny. I mean, the amount of crazy stories like that happen just are unbelievable. Like,
I can't even imagine.
Funny.
So when did you make that transition from making or doing all these cool gigs to being like, I want to start my own playing card company.
Yeah, it was weird. It was strange.
That's a huge endeavor. Like
it is a huge endeavor, but it all starts like it makes sense because like basically I would buy bicycle decks in bulk, and so I'd buy like a gross at a time because we'd use so many decks working, right? Like at least 2 a gig, maybe 3. We're tearing cards and like bending them and stuff. And you don't want to after it, you just want to throw them away or give them away.
Yeah.
And then so I buy usually like a gross with my buddy Sean McFarlane, another like amazing working magician around Asia, and he just moved to Australia, but unbelievable magician. And we just split it and then buy a gross every time we needed more. There's no options, right? As everyone knows, 10, 15 years ago, it would be laughable to think that you could use a deck that was printed out other than US playing card, right? Even Cardamundi decks back then like were terrible with those corners, and like you could use it, but it wouldn't be like pleasurable, you know. And we were all so used to bicycle. We still are. So it's not like it's still a comfortable deck to use if you get a decent one, anyone can use a bicycle deck, any magician, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, but the problem is in the humidity in Hong Kong, they would inflate. Like, so once you open them up from the cello, I mean, you have a 2-hour window where you can like work with them, and then they slowly like get like a sponge, and then they like puff up, and they get super soft, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
And like kind of sticky, kind of like not good way. And then we even got some of the Turner gold seals, which were better, but anyway, I didn't know anything about card production at that point, but I was like, okay, I'm in Asia. I have a lot of friends in manufacturing business and a lot of connections here. Why not like see if someone can print some decks, right? Or find a company that can print decks. So I went around and went to a lot of different factories. Taiwan was where it kind of all started. And there's a decent card factory that could, like, the card quality was good, but their packaging was like terrible. And like, really, I was like, this is strange. So then basically like David Blaine wanted to try new things too. And Bill Kalush from Expert. So I was there in Asia, and I'm like, look, I'll like liaise with them. And then I wanted to print a custom deck myself. So Blaine hooked me up with Stutzman. And then I wanted to make the first deck nice, even though like now, if you look at that first deck, it's like nothing compared to what we're doing now, but it's just learning. But it was the paper that was the key, the playing card paper. And that's always been the focus of Legends. Like the cards themselves have to be like amazing quality. Yeah. And they were a little bit resistant to humidity. And, I found out later you can even customize the actual humidity level that you want the end result to be when you're making the paper. Because now we order it all custom, like 190,000 sheets at a time, like a full container. So, and you can tell them like they're making it for you. So like yeah, they have certain ones they can do, but you can tell them like you want to put Loba in it, like a special like ink for casinos where turns the cards a little yellow, so it's softer in the eyes, so your eyes don't get as strained. So you can add all this stuff in and slowly learn more and more about it. But and so these humidity resistant cards, I mean, they last those original decks and that original diamond finish, later called I shared the process with Kalush from Expert, and they called it Master, but it's the same thing, Master finish. And then it was nice because it was a stiffer paper, but they just lasted really long. They're great for working in Asia. So I just used those for years and years, and then slowly like tried to find a new paper. Then Classic Finish was next, and so on. But the goal was to make paper that like, and if they when they get wet on the edges, if you're working at bars and stuff, they wouldn't get all like black and stuff like the US playing card decks. So that was another thing that was really nice. And just the resistance to humidity was the main thing. And then it turns out they lasted a lot longer. And unfortunately, it could be seen as a bad thing because you don't sell as many. But for me, it's all about quality. So
yeah, I mean,
that's always been the thing.
I can't even imagine. Here's the thing, though. Like, you guys recently, I'm going to bite my words here because I want to say recently, and I'll bring it back. I'll tell you why in a second. But like, your recent decks are off the chain. Like, they are amazing, right? But I also go back and think of you did Bitcoin as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Bitcoin was on that same paper actually as those Fontaines. But yeah,
That
Yeah.
deck is that deck's freaking
It's
awesome.
awesome.
It's
Yeah.
awesome, and I think
Yeah.
literally people don't even realize that that's a Legends deck.
And that was hard to do because it was like the Tux were we made somewhere else, and like it was a big process to do. There's a lot of decks too. Oh, Andre's doing well now these days, huh?
Oh, bro, Andre
man, I
who?
love his
He's
show.
like, he's
Yeah,
gone.
yeah,
What is
yeah, yeah.
Andre
Yeah.
who? That's like one
Yeah.
dude. I mean, he's obviously a brilliant man, which he got out of the card
is.
community, which was, now he's doing.
He still loves it. He still loves it.
course.
It's like me. It's like I love cards. I always love cards. I don't perform corporate shows really anymore at all. But
Right.
like, it's like he's found a path that works for him perfectly.
Oh my god, he's like
Yeah.
It's amazing.
crushing it. But I mean, it
Yeah.
just sucks because he's so good at like what he does. He's
Uh-huh.
so good at Magic, and he was so fun to watch.
Yes.
I'm super happy for him. I'm just bummed I don't get to see him do cool shit
I
anymore.
mean,
with
people
that.
like that. They have focus, right? They have a lot of focus, and
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and he was great to work with for the project too. He was very clear, and we made a great deck for them. And yeah, I wish we just bought 1 Bitcoin for every deck. That would have been a good.
I don't think you'd be making cards at this
Dude.
point. Yeah, you'd be chilling.
I think
Even
they
if
were
you
like,
bought 1 Bitcoin for every 10 decks, you'd be set.
at that point, I think it was like $7,000 for Bitcoin or something. It's crazy.
I've probably
But,
told
yeah.
this story before, but this is like my biggest damn this sucks story. Is I used to run a business back in the day that leased servers for whatever purposes, and I had a couple clients who used to pay in Bitcoins, and this was back in 2011. And I had a client who bought a year for a server. It was $420, and he paid me in 42 Bitcoins.
Mhm.
And at the time, Bitcoins were $10 each. And I needed the operating costs, and so I had to go
Yeah,
and I had
of
to flip
course,
those
of
Bitcoins
course.
immediately. And looking back over the course of that time, I probably filtered through about 140 Bitcoins. And yeah, that kills me all the time.
Tyler.
But yeah, there's no shame in like taking.
No,
No, I
it-
mean,
it-
it was what it was. I loved what I
Yeah.
was doing at the time. I never look back and I mean, listen, I could look back and be like bummed about
It's
it
funny.
all the time.
It's a great
I laugh
story,
about
though.
it now. Yeah, I laugh
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
now. And you have to, because honestly,
Yeah.
you go through life, no one hits every single opportunity. That's just how it
No, of
goes.
course not.
Some people miss more than others, but as long as you're trying them, that's the part that's important.
So crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and, like, well, better than that guy that like bought a pizza for whatever 200,
Oh my-
whatever it was.
Yeah, when they were like
Yeah,
10
yeah.
cents each.
Yeah.
That one, that's I mean, and you think about the amount of people who have stories about losing a hard drive in like the garbage
Mhm.
that had like 50 Bitcoin on it and all this stuff now. It's crazy how many people
Mhm.
were like almost ahead of the curve with Bitcoin who like just had faith in it, and then over time, just circumstances, they lost it. So
Yeah, and like 10 years ago, remember, like this was like it was kind of hard to figure out how to get a wallet and stuff. And
oh my
I
god,
had
yeah.
maybe 3 or 4 friends that lost everything in Mount Gox, like 3 or 4
I have
coins,
5
and
tied
then-
up in their
yeah.
bankruptcy proceedings. So
Yep.
Mount
So
Gox
it-
screwed the
it-
industry big
It
time.
was like the Wild West, and another couple friends whose accounts got hacked through like a phishing scam, and it can happen. That's the thing, but it's a huge reward, huge risk. But I'm
It's
Yeah.
all
big
about
into
Silk
crypto.
Road, buddy. It's all about.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why the FBI kicked in Steve's door.
Open up. Where's my FBI
Yeah.
sound? Open up.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
have the weed deck there in the back. Oh,
There
I
you
don't
go.
have.
just
I don't
a
have
deck of
any
playing
cards. I don't have. The only weed I have near my house is in my pot. My potted plant.
No, have
Oh
you
my
seen
God.
that deck called the Weed Deck? It's like it sold really well, and
Was
it
it
was
the Mary
it's like
the Mary Jane one or the bicycle?
there were two actually, and it's like an infographic type thing. It teaches you about the
Oh,
plants,
yeah, I think we saw
about
that.
cannabis, and it's actually cool. And
That's
that
like a new
photography
craze.
deck that was out, yeah, like, the photography deck on Kickstarter is cool, and those do well. They do well.
Dude,
They really
I
do,
mean-
because I think they appeal to a larger audience than just who you would normally find on Kickstarter. A lot of times
Mhm.
collectors don't like them because of the step away from traditional styling. But for the masses who are
Exactly.
sitting there being like, hey, this is a clever little pocket size guidebook to
It is.
whatever, it's great.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them that I've been searching around and thinking about it, and like, yeah, it is because you can open up a whole new market that is like the education market. It's giant, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh, yeah. And like all you need to figure out is like, what are the top 10 how do I questions that go to Google? And you make a deck around that, and people are going to bite into it. The photography deck
Yeah.
blew up, and we've seen a lot of people try after the fact. And it's interesting because a lot of times what people do is they go for the niches that are specific to them. So like we've seen a yoga deck, we've seen, you know, small decks like that, and they get a healthy backing, but they're not hitting that level the photography deck did. Because I think that was just had a great push to it. But yoga's a niche market. As much as it's more mainstream these days than it was 20 years ago, it's still a niche market. You know, there's so many different aspects where you need to realize it's got to be something like huge. Like, how do I mean, listen, if someone came out with like a, how do I do my taxes deck of cards, like that would be great. Everyone would buy that one.
The problem is
So
you use
you
that
burn
once
the
a
deck.
I think what it comes down to is it's like, it's got to work for your environment too, where it's like, I'm a photographer, and I'm not going to lie here. When I saw that photographer deck come out, I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a little bit. I would
Like,
never. I love photography too, and I'm like, oh, this is Sunny 16. Wow.
Yeah, but see,
you know what?
But I
that's what
mean,
I'm saying. I'm like,
you know what though? There's a lot more amateur photographers than there are
100%.
professional photographers,
No,
and that's where they struggle.
100%.
100%.
And
And
friends
the thing
that
is,
have
that's why it didn't work for
yeah.
yoga though, is because when you're doing yoga, it's
Yeah.
just you and your mat. You're not
And you
carrying
don't
around
have-
a
yeah.
backpack or
You don't
something
have
like
1,000 people a day though who are also trying to be like, I could be a photographer, or you don't have 1,000 people a day being like, I could be into yoga. Like you're either
that.
into
Clearly,
yoga
you
or
don't know
not.
the yoga community.
No, but here's what I'm saying though. You're either into yoga or you're not. But there are a million people. I guarantee you, pretty much anyone at some point in time in their life has been like, man, I could be a photographer, because you have a phone accessible to you these days.
Yeah,
So,
everybody
like,
says that now.
exactly.
The
And that's where
computational
it
power
is.
of the phone. Yeah.
I think that's what they tapped into that was so successful. You're not trying to reach out to the professional market. You're not trying to reach out to the existing market. You're trying to reach out to every single person who sat there at some point in time and been like, I could do that. How do I do it? And then thought about it as a hobby, you know? Like, wedding photographers aren't going to carry around a deck of cards with them. Yogis are not going to carry around a deck of cards with them. But that one dude who's like, man, these cell phone pictures look great. How can I make them better? Is picking up that deck in a heartbeat.
And it probably and it probably helped them, to be honest. And you know, and it's they're cool. They are very cool. I mean, that reminds me of that idea from Roberto Jobbi, I think it was, in Secret Agenda, where like you get a blank deck and then you write like all the card tricks you can do, and you shuffle it, and then you like turn over that card and you do that trick, because oftentimes you end up in a pattern of practicing the same little like moves, and it's like, really, that's not a great way to practice. Like, if you want to practice, you should actually focus and really practice. But idly, like, handling cards is fun as a fidget kind of thing, and I do it every day. So, but if you really want to practice, you need to like have like a routine, and that's a cool way to. You have a blank deck and write all the tricks, and you just shuffle, then flip one and flip another, and then you do those routines and practice them to get good at them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool idea.
You just do the hoe drop. That's what we call that now, because Kevin Ho created it and he called it the backdrop. And I was like, dude,
wait, which one? What was it?
What one you just did?
So Lawrence has a little bit of
I
a
don't do
different
the. I
twist
don't.
to it.
I don't.
He doesn't do the.
One.
He doesn't do the backdrop. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
I just do it I learned from Blaine though. This way.
Oh, the flip. Oh,
yeah.
Where it goes in the other. But then it gets hard to do. It gets hard when you do it like one over, one back. Did it?
Yeah, Alex
damn,
has a tutorial on that.
Yeah.
That was dope.
Yeah.
It's dope.
Yeah, it's super hard though.
God, I can only imagine.
The first one's easy, but doing both of them is like super hard.
Oh, you know what looks awesome with these decks though is this thing. I think would look cool.
Oh, Under Pressure.
Oh, yeah.
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 This
I mean,
deck,
I'm not great at it,
granted,
but-
you know, I mentioned too, I have the green and black version in my hand here too. This deck is just made to be in motion. Like,
I love that one.
everything about this deck is made to move and made to fan and spring and be in packet. It's just such a gorgeous deck.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Also printed by Legends.
Yes.
Legends. Whoa, Legends.
You know what else?
So-
You know what else? Looks good? Oh, you can't see it, but look at that nice foil. Dude, now, for people who have no idea, and I don't know if we want to dive into this now or if we want to wait, but can we talk a little bit about the process of printing a foil deck? Because a lot of people don't understand what goes into a foil deck and why it does cost so much more than your standard deck of cards.
Right. Sure. I mean, I can run you through the rest of. So what happened with Legends was eventually I got Stutzman, paid him a lot to do that first deck, the artwork, and then I might do a reissue that's all fancy and nice. But
now, which deck was that?
Just the 852, the first one, like super basic, like
Yeah.
10, over 10 years ago now, maybe. But and then printed a bunch. I think they sold a lot, and then I sold some at cost to Bill Kalush, and before Expert was like a thing. And then he sold some on there, and it gained like popularity. And then like I printed another deck, and then my small like Hong Kong apartment's slowly filling up with gross boxes of cards. And I'm like, okay, I have a card coffee table. Now I have like a card couch. And I'm like, this is getting a bit like much. So then I eventually got like small office space with a friend, and then like focused on it a bit on the side while I was still doing shows. And then I would say when COVID hit, or a little bit before, I really like took it a lot more seriously, and then like really try to make it into something where I could, really build it to something better and improve my customer service, which is, never ending battle. But because especially now, because we're putting in new technologies in, and it's like educating. Just for me to learn the hot foil process, probably took me 2 years, right? Because and then learning cold foil is a whole nother thing. Learning full foil is a whole nother thing. And I don't expect my customers to know how that works, but I can definitely make it easier for them to understand it. And it's preparation of the artwork. Like if artwork's ready, we could print a deck in 2 emails, right? You send the art and it's done. But the problem is, it's like there's a ton of back and forth, and people have questions, especially when it gets complicated. Like, can we do custom seals? Can we do foil on the seal? Can we do? And then, so I've been working on a nice FAQ for my customers and figuring out how to make that clear. And especially for new people coming in wanting to print, it helps. But if you want to run through a bit of the foil technologies, I love that stuff. So
I mean, I think you have your standard deck, which obviously the color, it's different for CMYK, it's different for Pantone inks and stuff like that. Now, I mean, there's so much to talk about. Literally, we could probably talk for 27
so I can start
hours.
from we could talk forever. But the cool thing about why foil's expensive typically is because like a normal card printing company, you're printing cards and that's it. You don't have the foil machines in-house, right? So in Taiwan, when we were kind of working with the company there a lot more, they had to pack up all the sheets, send them out to another guy that does foil, and then you have extra costs there, and the cards can get all dusty or damaged, which they do, and there's a lot of wastage in particular. And the problem is like the foil alignment is an issue because it's kind of a manual process. Like someone is physically putting a sheet into a machine and it's stamping down like a big clamshell. There's other big machines like a Bops machine that can do a whole sheet at once, but it's like still they don't work quite as well as the traditional clamshell ones. So you need like a really good technician. And not only that, you can't stamp the whole sheet at the same time. Because imagine if you have the card backs, like you would need a giant foil plate, right? Like this size. And while you can make that, the problem is there's always going to be it's always going to be higher up and lower in some parts, no matter how precise you make it, right? Unless maybe you have you make it really thick and then it'd be like a $10,000 plate or something. But anyway, essentially you can't make it perfectly. Not only that, the pressure has to be even and the heat has to be even through the whole thing. So imagine trying to stamp a whole sheet, like there's like a corner might be off or something. So we do it in sections. So it's done in like 4 sections.
And you have to buy each one of those plates per individual.
Yeah, deck, well, we can typically use the same. If the card back artwork's the same, we use the same like little square, and we do like each section.
Gotcha.
And we just move it around, adjust and align it, and then put the same sheets back in. So there's a lot of manual labor, right?
Yeah.
And now at the new Legends factory, which now we have like an exclusive deal with a factory that I found about. They're a paper making factory and make paper products, but zero playing card experience at all. And as a Hong Kong based family, and like about I think like 7 years or 6 years ago now, they came to me and they're like, we want to make like a higher end product. Do you want to help us make cards, and we'll set up a section of the factory for you on the top floor, and we can we purchase machinery together. And so now it's like we have full control over the process. But not only that, it's built on top of a packaging factory. So we have all the resources of like cardboard and paper packaging, like downstairs,
That's so
and the
dope.
resources of 1,100 staff, to do like all the production management. But as far as the Legend staff, it's just very few. But the front end, but the back end, they can handle all the shipping and all that like very easily, and all the managing all the there's 6 printing presses, right? So usually we typically only use 1 or 2 because there's certain ones we like that are better, and for different kind of inks. But yeah, it's like a proper operation, and then the processing and the finishing kind of part of it is upstairs, and that's all like Legends machinery that no one else can use and stuff. So it's a nice, it's a sweet deal, because basically in Taiwan the problem was the owner of the factory, like all this these new ideas that we brought, eventually they started like printing for anyone, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we were like, dude, like it's like, we brought you millions of dollars worth of business and new customers that you never had, and then like a ton of new ideas, and then they like kind of ripped it off. But I can't blame him really, but like that just made me kind of, it was like a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. And
All about the money for some people,
Yeah, and I want something where I can be more secure, and like my like innovations and the things that I do like can actually like like stay that way, and not worry about like having other people kind of come in and print there. So that's what it is now. So it's an amazing setup, and that's why we can do foil decks a lot more affordably, because we have, I think, 25 hot foiling machines.
Dude,
Oh, wow.
Thinking about buying another. So yeah,
dude, 13. What is it? 1388 or something on your site
for what? Sorry,
for the Copperhead.
Copperheads, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and yeah, they're affordable.
That's a steal.
Dude,
I mean,
1388.
yeah, more than affordable. Like that's a steal.
Yeah.
That's
sure.
hot foil, right? Hot foil.
Yeah, they're hot foil. Those are hot foil. Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
there's only 288 made. Go to Legend.
Yeah.
Pick them up. They're amazing.
I mean, they're at that price so that people can feel the technology and see like the stuff we can do. I mean, so yeah, and then so we literally just pack up the sheets on a pallet, bring them downstairs in the elevator, and then start hot foiling them. And then there's less transit and issues with that, and I don't have to ship them to somewhere else. And then so the costs are like, I don't think anyone can make hot foil decks as affordably, to be honest, anywhere in the world.
In addition to that, though, too, like we've seen other hot foil, and it never handles as well.
Yeah,
the handling is just spot on with it.
The only other person who does hot foil is Lautrec, I think, right?
Yeah, and and granted, he's done a lot of effort to get his stuff fan better, but that's also not necessarily his goal at the end of the day. So
yeah, his stock is also different than what you guys.
His stock's different. He has a lot of wastage. I think he can, there's alignment issues on a lot of it, so he can only sell like a small amount of the production. And because that's the thing. Like, you put little guides in on this thing when the sheet slides in, and like, but it can still like. It's paper. I mean, it can, move like a millimeter kind of, or a little bit less in any direction. And that's the one kind of drawback of hot foil is that. So there is a little bit of a shift. You have to think about that when you're preparing the artwork is the main thing. But it's fine. It's just the cool thing about hot foil is it's really shiny. It's a lot shinier than cold foil. Yeah. And I mean, the full foil is definitely really shiny, but it adds a bit of bulk to the deck, and like we can talk about that actually too, and like how there's this basically creating almost my own new playing card now, like making the playing card from scratch.
That's really cool.
So I'll explain it later. It's really cool, but
they can get the taste of that on characters, right?
Yeah, the first deck it's done on was characters, and I haven't explained much about the process because I kind of want to keep it a little secret.
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
But it's really cool. It's really cool, and like I haven't seen it anywhere, and so it's awesome.
It's the Legends way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for me that's the fun part. It's like figuring out a new thing, or like making the cards feel slightly better. And I met a guy that at another factory in Shanghai who I'm really close with, and sometimes we print there, but not too often. But he introduced me to a coating manufacturer in America. So then now we have custom made coating, and the coating's from America. We actually ship it over to China and then like coat all the cards with the American stuff, so they don't have that smell like those Taiwan
Oh,
decks.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Tyler and I were talking about that actually.
Yeah.
Because we've seen a couple decks now that are not. They don't have the same kind of pungent smell you expect when you open a Taiwanese
Speaking
deck.
of cool decks, huh?
Oh, such a fun one.
Ooh,
That's the Bieber deck.
Yeah, that Bieber deck, and they like this cool packaging, which was a thing I like found in it was like a cigarillo box. I'm like, that could be cool for cards, but
dude, and that's
but I
so
recently
cool.
saw that other one from what was
Tempo.
it? The Art
It's
playing
Arc.
card. Art
Arc,
playing
yeah.
card that
Yeah.
did that thing, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
yeah, that thing. But but yeah, so they're not, I wouldn't say they're terrible smelling, but like they're definitely not terrible, but I'm thinking about maybe adding a little like wood scent to it or something. It could be fun, or like a papery,
like sandalwood, dude. Sandalwood
into
would
it.
be
Yeah. But it might be a bit overwhelming. I think it'd have to be done in a very
Take a page from the lessons that OPC learned. Don't put too much scent in anything.
Yeah.
Because
they did it. They did that.
So they did actually in the packaging. They did essential oil drops in the packaging, and it basically bled into everything. But also because it's essential oil, the smell probably is still there after 3 years now. So
it's pretty bad.
Be quickly overwhelming.
Scent is a tough one. Scent's a tough one because people don't mind it until they do. Like, you can have a certain, it's so easy to accidentally cross that line, especially if you're trying to figure out what's too much versus what's enough. And everyone's sense of smell is so different that like you could have 90% of the people love it, but the 10% there who maybe has heightened sense of smell, it's like overpowering to them. So as neutral as possible is probably the best. Think about
what if you lined like you took the lining of like the carton. I don't know what they come in, but you line the carton with like the oils. They don't touch the paper. And you know how like if you have an incense and your incense is burning, but your whole house smells like the incense for weeks after, it's in your clothes. It's like maybe that would work, and it would be nice and mild.
Please don't.
I think just like one drop in a batch of 1,000 would be enough for
probably like. You know what? The way you want smell to work is you want people to smell it and be like, I think this smells like something, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yes. Yeah. It's like music in a movie. It's like once you realize the music, it's like, ooh. But it should, if it's done well, unless it's for effect. But yeah.
You think about like all of the memes that are in existence now about Axe body spray. Like people used to love Axe body spray.
I never liked that crap.
Yeah, that's because you're old, Steve. It's fine.
No, dude. I was young when that stuff first came out.
Yeah, but you were already kind of like a little bit aged out of like their demographic, because I think they were going for like 13-year-olds. They were going for like 13-year-olds, I think.
No, I was in their demographic when they came out. Are you kidding me? High school.
But yeah, like think about that now. Like something that starts out as like, oh, people love this smell, and then now it's like if you wear that, it's just like a running joke. So
yeah, that's
better to play it safe.
I'm sorry if anybody wears Axe.
Oh my god!
I didn't mean to say you stink with my face, but
it'd be nice if they made like an unscented spray one. But those salt rocks are great, but they don't for like normal use.
Yeah, it's
great. Yeah,
it can be abrasive.
It must be really cool having all those just aspects of your company in one place. That obviously makes it a lot easier. We were talking before the show how. For Visions, I basically, and same thing, for Tyler and I for Warrior Women. We basically went here for gilding. We went here for tuck boxes. We went here for printing. We went here for like collector's boxes. And it's like,
it's a nightmare. Logistical
everything's
nightmare.
Coming from, it's crazy.
Everything costs more to ship. And if you don't have everything within like, 20 miles, it's like really sucks. And we're doing some bigger projects for not necessarily card related, but everything needs to be produced around there and then assembled, right? So it's just every cent matters for some bigger projects, and then that's how you economize and really make it more efficient. And very lucky, and with this great family that runs the place, and the son is like my age, so and he loves cards, and so I'm super stoked. It's like having it's pretty much like having, you know, my own factory, but with a bigger, with much less investment and like a huge back end team with a ton of new different processes we can use. So
Awesome.
it's fun. Every time I visit the factory, I'm like super stoked. I stay for a couple of weeks usually and like just learn about all the whole everything, and like I always trying to like figure out new stuff, and that's part of the fun for me. So
Yeah, no, I mean, dude,
we'll do a factory tour at some point.
Yes.
The internet's not great. It's noisy, super noisy. We'd have to have maybe like but it'd be cool. Maybe I actually have a lot of video I could maybe share, and like it's neat. It's neat.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. When you're back over there, we'll do a tour for sure.
Yeah, I haven't been in like a year and a half because of COVID, but you know, we talk every day. But yeah, I haven't been back in a while, but it's fun. It's really fun. I mean, to think like to actually make something, physical things have to move, and it has to be created to make a deck of cards. It's not just like printing on an inkjet machine, right? There's like it's a giant machine that shakes. It has to be bolted into the ground. It's like it takes 2 hours to set up the machine just for a print run, and you know, so people are like, why can't you just print one deck? It's like, well, it takes like 2 hours to set the thing up, and it's like it takes, you know, 150 200 sheets just to calibrate it, and then one deck. It's like, right? Well, we can, but it's going to cost you $3,000.
Like, I mean, that's good because people don't understand that. Why can't you just print my prototypes? I want 10 decks.
Right.
Well, the reason why I can't print your 10 decks is because, yes, we have to go through 30 decks just to calibrate the colors that you want. And if the colors aren't right, we got to print it again.
Yeah,
you know?
Way more than 30, and there's like 4 people involved to set up just one of the machines, and then like a ton of pre-production, pre-press, making the plates, you know, and that's just for a normal CMYK deck. So like hot foiling is different, and this is why we can sample tucks quite affordably, because basically we just use paper and then like hot foil gets stamped on it. So that's like a very singular process. It takes a while for the technician to set up the and heat it up and everything, but it's like, you know, it's like the whole thing maybe a couple hours, and it's like you can do a few samples, but like it's when every time you turn on the Heidelberg press or the KBA press, every time it turns on, it's like a minimum of like $1,000, $2,000, like just to turn on the machine and before anything, you know. So it's like
crazy.
Yeah, and then, you know, they run AM PM printing, so like there's a night staff too that prints, because they do a lot of packaging other products other than cards. So you know, they're really efficient there, and that's why we can for basic decks we can print them in like 4 or 5 weeks, but anything with foil or complicated packaging, it needs more time. But
now, how long does it take? And obviously, I know it's not like you sit there and do it from start to finish, but how long does it take once you start printing a deck to finish? Like, how long is that production time? Because I know a lot of, you know, once you kind of proof your deck, you know, it might get in, it's in production, but it might take, you know, 6 weeks. What's that?
It depends on the processes that are used. There's a lot of steps to it, and we have to schedule in the right time for the printing and everything. And then some customers like changing last minute, and then it's like, it can be a nightmare sometimes. But if the artwork's done and like you've approved the digital proofs, like it can actually be like 3 weeks, but usually it ends up being like 4 for a normal standard deck.
How long does it take for the deck to dry?
The deck to dry usually takes about 3 days per side, depending on the time of year, because of the humidity content. And now we built a special like climate controlled room to like, not only do you have to have the paper dried after you print, and we use UV inks now, so it helps a little bit with that, but you have to acclimatize the paper before it's printed so it prints correctly. So it's like a problem we found out, you know.
Very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, how do they dry? Because can they go?
Yeah, they dry in a stack, which is weird, but like,
interesting. So they don't bleed?
Yeah, it's strange.
They don't bleed onto each other?
No, because once the there's like 2 types of coating that kind of go on it. One that's like an inline coating. So right after like the 4 or 5 printing plates printed, there's a little like usually an oil-based coating, that very, very thin layer that goes on like right after they come out and stack on. And once that's on it, they're kind of like sealed. They don't really bleed or anything, but then they still need time to like absorb and dry. And then we run it through like an offline setup for coating. So like that's when like the nice coating that makes it feel like cards goes on, and that's like through a heat tunnel, and really nice new heat tunnel we built actually like a year ago. So it's like all brand new, and that's why the cards are feeling a little bit better now the last year and a half because of that. And then they still have to like dry a little bit and acclimatize, and then we cut them, and then like cut, cello wrap, and you can choose if you want the cards to be cello wrapped and then the box or both, or yeah.
That's cool.
So
now,
it's fun. It's a long process. There's a lot more to it, but yeah.
Now, what is Lawrence's favorite Legends deck?
My favorite deck? Ooh, good question.
And what's your favorite Legends deck? And then what's your favorite non-Legends deck?
My favorite Legends deck, the one we printed, or like a Legends, the in-house decks. It's mainly just to like showcase a new technology or something usually. But I really like, it's almost out, this Palms Oracle done by Stuart Palm.
Oh, cool.
It's a nice soft, it's a beautiful soft touch paper, dual foiled, and like he did a nice spot UV.
That is beautiful.
Here, and the guy spent like a year on this artwork. The drawer
look at that
is
gilding.
Like the drawer.
That's not gilding. That's
it's actually
box.
holographic box. Yeah, we have some that are gilded purple, but these are awesome, and because they're cold foiled, and they're on the last little bit of the diamond finish, because that company went out of business that makes the paper. So
these bastards going out of business.
Limited amount left. So these super stiff, thin cards that are going to be, they're never going to exist again, pretty much. So that's another thing about decks, which people don't realize, is they're like mini time capsules of the time they're created, and there's actually no way to recreate the way they feel. Like even if you got the same stuff, like it probably wouldn't work, right? It's like try to make nuggets again the same. It's like they're never really going to be the same, that's what makes it so fascinating. That's from the feel perspective of the cards. And then this is a cool thing, like the
oh, cool,
the clouds all move, but then it's also like a nice mark deck. So
that's cool.
Really clever. And these beautiful, like really subtle cold. You can't see it quite.
Oh, you can see the hollow foil.
There's cold foil actually. This is cold foil is awesome because it's very detailed. Yeah. So
that is amazing.
It's printed on like an ink, pretty much. So the cool thing about it is it won't shift at all. There won't be that 0.5 millimeter of shift like you get with a hot foil.
Right.
But the drawback is you only have silver and gold and hollow, and but you can print on top of the silver to make other colors, but it dulls it's not as shiny.
Dude, I learned so much about, obviously print and visions, about how you print that cold foil.
So this is hot foil. You can see how it's super shiny. So we did the three extra cards in hot foil, but then the bulk of the deck is done in cold foil. But
how dope is that? Cold foil and hot foil in the same deck.
Yeah, it's an awesome deck, and like the artwork is just phenomenal. Like it's unbelievable. He really like went all out on it, and there's like 1,500 of these coming out in the next few weeks. But
where's that going to drop on Legends?
On the Legends site, yeah. And Stuart actually uses them to work, and it's a like a fortune telling deck as well as a poker deck. So you can do really card tricks, and then also he loves telling. It's perfect for his like style of magic, and he's working a lot and divination stuff, and that's a cool one. I really particularly like. Expensive to make, but nice. And there's some obscure ones like people haven't seen. We did this like flocking material on the box, like it's a furry material.
So cool.
And you can apply it like a spot to anywhere you want, and in different colors. It's like furry, so a lot of people are starting to use that. A couple big brands. We're doing some big.
Dude, we have some big cat lovers. Where can they get that?
That one burned, unfortunately. Yeah, we had a fire in not the factory, but the warehouse. So the warehouse actually burned to the ground.
Oh,
and
wow!
There were only like 100 decks left. We must have had like, I think, over 300,000, $1,500,000 worth of stock there. Like it was really sad. Stuff that could never be reprinted because we had like a library of all the decks we printed. So usually every print run we keep 30 or so just for reference, and all gone. I think some decks I only have one of or two. It's really sad, but
that sucks.
Unfortunate. But then, you know, it's okay. Then the new factory is good and those new setups great. So, you know, but that was a sad couple of years where I was like, oh, should I keep doing this? Oh, like, God. And then, you know, but then pulled through. You know, I love cards. So,
yeah. So, well, just look at it this way. If you want, I know a guy who can print one deck for you. It'll just cost $2,000.
yeah, exactly.
You can always reprint those back stocks that you needed, you know?
Yeah.
I'll hook you up with my guy.
I wish, but yeah, like I said, it's like each deck's like a little time capsule. Even if you tried to recreate it perfectly, you never really could, and it would be it's like it's for that it was made then, and that's what it was. Like reprints are never the same, really, and as you guys know, even with like a lot of consistency, they're always a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I mean that totally makes sense, and I think it's cool. It's just like with a photograph, you know. Sometimes you don't get that shot. Sometimes it's good to just have it in the head. Whereas I think we kind of take it for granted when we have photos, and we're constantly trying to capture that photo in that moment. Where it's like, you know what, just hold that moment in your mind.
Sometimes it's better, and it's like, yeah.
It's so true. You know, I went to Thailand for 2 weeks, and I didn't even bring a camera with me. You know, and people were like,
that's the best way.
What is wrong with you? You're a photographer. How do you go to Thailand and not bring a camera? I'm like, because I'm a photographer, I didn't want to bring a camera because I know I wouldn't have saw Thailand the same if I brought a camera. You know?
It's like people that film the whole concert. You never watch that footage of ever. You never open it again and go, oh, look, a 1 centimeter tall guy on a stage. Like it's like you never watch it. It's too loud. It's like maybe take a photo and then enjoy the show, right?
That's so true.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so funny.
It's definitely true. It's
I think though some younger, you know, the younger Gen Z and stuff, they're realizing like, okay, like phone is a huge addiction, internet, you know, they grew up with internet, and they are starting to realize like you need to kind of enjoy life a bit. And it's hard, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, tell people that at weddings. When you go to a wedding, everybody's like this in the aisle with their cameras.
Yeah,
it's like photographers in the back are like, really?
They hate it, especially when they like the photographers set the scene and the lighting, and then they go right behind the photographer and take like the same shot, and it's like, hey, like what? Yeah, I've heard many stories. Yeah,
that's funny.
But you know, the worst for me was when I would work. There would always usually be a corporate photographer and sometimes videographer. Pardon?
From standing behind you, showing your little like.
Well, they would film the tricks, but the problem was I'd give them like a briefing before, like when there's a staff briefing, like before the event, like the cocktail party or something, or the dinner party, and or the product launch, and then there's usually a couple of photographers. I'm like, okay, but like these are the moments in the trick where you want to get the photo when the card pops up and stuff, and like don't forget, okay, like I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it now for you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, there's no like. All my stuff is very like surrounded friendly, but yeah. But I was like, you want to get this photo? I'm gonna hold it at eye level, get the photo. Like right when it pops up, they'll go, wow. I show them the trick first. I'm like, and then without fail, no matter how many times I told them I'd be doing the trick, and then they're standing there with like the cameras, and they're like, "Whoa!" And then I'm like, "You idiot! You're like missed the moment." Like, it would annoy the hell out of me.
Those are people who aren't photographers. Those are the ones that are like, I want to be a photographer. And the problem is there wasn't one of those.
These are like pro photographers. They're so distracted. They were like watching, and then they're like, and then they're like too late. And then eventually they figure it out. But like, it's like
there wasn't a photographer's cheat sheet back then where they could say, pay attention to the.
yeah. But it's funny. Working gigs is funny, but.
That's cool though. It's definitely a change in what you did, being around people all the time. And dude, is it?
Yeah, it's a big change.
Is it difficult to be where you are now here in the States and not like be at the factory where you can be interacting with everybody?
it's really weird to not do shows anymore, but like the factory luckily was like perfectly, like actually my plan was to travel and meet my customers around the world and kind of develop those relationships right before COVID. But it took a good like 5 to 6 years to set up the new factory, get it running properly, you know, from nothing to, like I said, we had to like just getting the cello right took maybe a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
It was tight and would shrink on the corners sometimes. Like now it's fine, but I kind of like the tighter
Me too.
cello. It's more clean, but not too tight where you can't slide at least a card in the back. But you know, and then the tear strip would be like wobbly and some, which just looks terrible. It's like every little detail matters for packaging.
100%.
And like it's those little things that annoy me. And like we're still working on trying to get this pull tab a little bit more nice.
The pull tab is always
at least it's there, but like I want it to be like a little bit out. But yeah. But the inner deck you can crack. If it's like wrapped, you can crack it and it pulls off.
Yeah,
you don't have to pull it from the thing. But yeah, I mean, I love those little details, and for me, like all the little details add up, and people can tell. Even people that aren't card collectors, you give them a Legends deck and a bicycle deck, you know, even close your eyes and you'd be like, okay, there's something different about this, and like you can feel quality for sure. And then for sure between like a dime store deck and a good deck, right? Like, you know, that quality is very apparent because a lot of brands like Louis Vuitton and that Cartier they all make decks of cards, and I use some of their cards like before I had a factory and a playing card company, and I think a lot of printed at Cartamundi or Modiano or something in Italy, and they were kind of like usable but barely usable. And it's like I was like, why don't they? I was like, do they just not know about better quality? And I think that was it. They just didn't even realize that. I mean, they're selling a luxury product, but like the packaging and stuff was luxury. The cards themselves were kind of like junky. So, but now they're realizing we did like 60, 70,000 decks for Estee Lauder, and they used them as gifts and stuff. And those went down really well. And so like they are realizing that like you can spend an extra little bit and get like a much better quality level, you know, that normal people also can feel and feel that they are better than you know, just a deck printed on normal paper, cardboard, or whatever, you know, 100%. Like
100%. And I think you know, one of the cool things you know, about your packaging, and you know, and I know USPCC used to have this is their template. They used to do it on the T42, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
the thicker one, or
it's like a little smaller, and now they're like you shake
one was one I think was for casino, and one the T20 is for like normal, I think is what it was, but I don't.
They don't use T42 anymore, which sucks because
no, they don't.
They don't. No, they don't even. Yeah, they don't do it. And that's one cool thing is yours doesn't have so much shake. You know, like USPC.
Those will have more. Those actually, the copperheads have more. We made them a 0.5 millimeter wider because of the stripper decks.
Yeah.
So we did actually, just to be safe, actually could have been fine without it, but so we have factory cut stripper decks, which I don't think, maybe there's been some at US Playing Card, but not done this way where they're actually cut wider. So cool. They're not cut down like a normal stripper deck. They're cut wider because we have you know so if you ring in a card like all the 4 aces into a normal deck, they'll be wider than the other, and you can strip them out. And not only that, you can strip them out from any direction then because they're wider, right? So if you put them into like 4 aces into another deck, but then you can use it for a lot of different principles, and they're 0.5 millimeter longer as well, so you can use them as a long card, which it's great for tricks like Tommy Wonders, like that. There's like tricks where if you want to force a card easily, it's easier to get a break under a long card than a short card because you don't have to do that like weird riffle.
The riffle,
yeah. So so they can work as long cards too. So you can have like a mini index if you want to take long decks from put them into the other deck, and or like a pocket index with a deck. But those I think are really cool, and we can also just tack them on to your order, right? It's like I want to 100 stripper decks with it, but It's very magic-y. Like, you do have to really like Magic or be a magician to want that. But they are, I think, the best stripper decks in the world for sure, by far, because they're
That's really
perfectly
cool.
rounded corners and perfectly cut. And but yeah, it's like you have to be. But there's a lot of work, tabled work you can do with stripper decks. That's cool. Yeah, and they're just the right amount. They're not too horsey where they're like easy to strip out, but then not too fine where you have to really struggle. So it's like you can get a nice easy strip and reliable. So yeah, those are cool.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool just seeing all the different options.
I think this was
You're
my
bringing up.
favorite kind of one, the Egyptian one, like
Yeah.
my favorite kind of early deck, because there's so much new stuff on it that no one had done. Like, and it really was like a leaps and bounds ahead of the first Legends deck, and did like full foil on the inside, and like, it was just a die cut tuck. I think we've done before, but like it was one of the first. And it was hard. We did 3D embossing on this, and you can see it's like a little bit off, but now we can do a bit better. But but it ends up, it's like kind of that vintage aesthetic, so it's cool.
Right.
I think the perforated seal on this, and like I just really thought it was a cool deck, and the inside, like,
Yeah. It's so solid,
this
too.
is like 9 years ago now. I mean, it's pretty crazy for 9 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing that people are even buying. I mean, no one would even buy a deck of cards printed outside of the States 10 years ago. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky people, and with the help of Conjuring Arts selling the decks, they really help promote like these decks from Asia, and Blaine used them too in his private work. And so, these were cool. And they're 3 different colorways. I like the blue and silver, but yeah, these were really, really nice. And Stutzman's art, really pretty.
So cool. Yeah. I like the blue and white one.
The blue and white one, the blue and
Yellow,
silver, something was really nice.
Silver?
Yeah,
I don't even
that was
remember
really
what
nice. I like those. Those were cool. And you can do like some vanishing deck type stuff if you want to, like, if you do it right, you can like make it look like the deck's vanishing, and then only one card. There's stuff you can do with like that cutout. It's not so. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun because all my stuff is designed to be for workers, right? They're designed to be handled and used by people that perform.
Right. I know a
lot
lot
of collectors like them, but yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people picked up the Stratosphere deck. They love that deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a new one coming.
Gorgeous looking deck.
Yeah.
So there's a full black edition coming with double full foil, and then a new. So this is like the new technology we're doing with the paper is actually going to be black, the actual card paper.
Oh, cool.
So all the edges will be black and not white. So
that's dope.
Hopefully it's going to look good. They just printed, I think, yesterday. So I'm waiting for them to be cut out and then see how they look. But it'll be like proper black paper. Isn't that crazy?
That's dope. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
now you gonna do a nice black gilded one. You don't even have to because it's going to be black anyway.
Yeah, you can't really gild the that, and you can't really gild the full foil because it's kind of like it's another layer of plastic, and when you gild it and prep it for gilding, it kind of melts that, so you can't really do it reliably. So we don't gild the full foil decks. But yeah, they're awesome. But yeah, this was a prototype from like. This was the first one. There's a Kickstarter that failed, but we printed the samples anyway. But with the company logo. But yeah, this was like 4 or 5 years ago before all the recent ones. But that black one is going to be awesome. It'll be a full foil, thin, really thin, and double-sided, and some cool little features in there. So
when can we cool. Expect to see that?
I mean, maybe even like a couple weeks. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they're really almost ready. I was trying to push them for Black Friday, but they're some projects for customers I wanted to like get through first, which is an incredibly important one that's going to come up that you'll see. But
you know what you could do
very soon.
You could just, since it's a black deck, you can bring it out on a Friday and say Legends Black Friday.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, to be honest. To be honest, everyone spend their money on Black Friday anyway. It's like wait a month and they'll have money again. It's not like a big deal. I'm not a huge like have to sell everything on Black Friday sort of thing.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And so you mentioned, there was a deck that went on Kickstarter and it didn't fund. You printed the samples though anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a lot of decks that go out there where you're like, oh man, I'm surprised this didn't fund? Or do you have you gotten a pretty good feel when people come to you with the initial deck, how things are going to play out?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much you can see, like, you can really tell, like, and that's why it's like some customers, I'm like, there's asking, emailing a lot of questions, and I'm like, like, it's hard to really we can print decks fast if the artwork's complete, but if it's not complete, it's like really difficult, like holding their hands through some of the process. And like, that's why I need to do more FAQs. And it's like, and sometimes we just have to say like, no, we can't print this deck because it's like either too much work or like, we can't do everything, right? So there has to be some sort of selection process. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the way it works.
I mean, especially as you're kind of trying to grow operations, I'm sure as time goes on, while you're trying to provide a fast and timely service, you want to make sure that you're really kind of being a little bit restrictive in who you are going to bring on board, especially when obviously you need to do another 50,000 print run versus 1,000 print run.
Yeah.
But like over time, I'm sure as your capability and your ability to print more decks grows in the same amount of time, that's what we see with all these big companies is like USPCC can print only X amount of decks a day. If they want to have more than the person who's printing 10,000 after all these other people in the queue, they're queued 6-8 weeks out. Like that's just how it goes.
Yeah. But I think more now, it's 3 months, but
no, they're getting crazy.
Yeah. And they only have, 2 staff too, that handle the custom side of it. So it's like the same thing pretty much, but they have a harder time doing all the foiling and all that. They don't want to. Actually, they'll just say no usually because it's too much work. But I don't mind doing the work if the artwork's set up correctly and it's like seamless getting into the production line, then sure. And like that's why working with old customers is a lot faster and more efficient. And if you've done the process once or twice, like you can get decks in. Like the car deck guys are really good at he's really good at Olivier or Oliver, really good at putting in the artwork in perfectly, and then it's like boom, like samples are done in 3 weeks, then decks are done in like 4 weeks. So that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it's not easy though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But,
and it's interesting though, because obviously when you're doing your first deck, you don't know what you're doing. And you ask a ton of questions.
And I respect that. I respect that absolutely. And I should do more kind of videos on the whole process. And I've been thinking about that too, to kind of educate the customers through the beginning phases. Because there's so much. How are you supposed to know everything? Like to us, we know a lot of it. And it seems like why wouldn't you know that like it has to? But like you don't. So
right.
It's not the customer's fault at all. But having artwork prepared correctly and follow the template guides does help a lot to where like then we can, once it's like in the process of pre-production and stuff, then that's where we can really start to like move quickly. If it's just like talking about it, like, hey, like there's hundreds, like
yeah. And I think that's where an FAQ, like you were talking about, helps with a lot of stuff. Maybe even having the templates and your standard Tuckbox template and stuff like that ready for download. That way,
that's already kind of good to go, but it needs more. It needs more for sure, and that's kind of the part. But that's exciting for me to kind of make the customer journey more seamless and easy. So
yeah, and dude, I will let everybody know. I've been working with you on my next deck, and you have been nothing but helpful and super, to the point of because you are way more knowledgeable on the printing side than I am, and the questions.
You guys know actually almost as much. Like I've heard some of your talks, like, wow, you know a lot. yeah.
Thank you, man.
We put a lot of time and effort into figuring out as much as we can. And honestly, it's interesting to see the learning curve there too, because I think the toughest part for any deck is the first time you make one, especially for non-designers. Like for us to go through the process, there's so many nuances you have to know about, and it's a huge learning curve. And even Jamie mentioned here in the chat, there's a big learning curve on the artwork, even between printers. So you don't have an industry standard, which is really interesting. So You know, I mean, the iterations we went through on Warrior Women for the tuck box to get it print because we used different printers. We must have gone through 6 different iterations of the tuck box, all the same artwork, just on different templates or tweaks here and there to make sure things were printing correctly. It's crazy. And like, I think people don't realize that going into it.
Yeah, we will actually accept artwork from in any other template. Usually US playing card template, definitely, because that's like the most common, and it's actually very almost similar. So there's no problem for our artists to like lay it. I like having them laid out on a sheet, to be honest. It's a lot easier to review the artwork rather than like unclicking each file with the way US playing card does it. But we're happy to do that for you and lay them out to the sheet. And the tuck box is identical pretty much. So you can submit in that format, but there's still a lot if you want custom stuff. There's a lot like separating out the foil and embossing and make sure the embossing is not too detailed. And now with hot foil and everything, it becomes like there's so many things, like you can do this with this, you can't gild with this, you can't. And so it's like it's hard to explain that all. But yeah, an FAQ would help. I mean, what I was going to say too, like sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, like, you know, for someone's first deck, it's also like it's a big investment, like $6,000, $7,000, a lot of money for paper, right? You know, and it's like,
I wish that's all I did.
Yeah, when you want it to be right and you want it to actually be perfect. So I tell people like don't rush it. Like wait till you're really happy with the artwork. You're gonna be looking at these for 10 years. So like don't rush it. Like, you know, like get it right. And yeah, and it is a little bit nerve-wracking to print your first deck. I mean, I know I did it too. So yeah.
No, I mean, if I could, you were talking about cold foil, and if I can offer anything to anybody printing cold foil on a deck or anything, you know, one of the big problems I had with my deck, you know, and not knowing how the printing process works and not being the designer myself and having to proof the files, and it's almost impossible.
Like, how do you know what you're looking at? Yeah, exactly.
But it's almost impossible anyway, because you're looking on a screen and it's going to print differently. So if you look at like this, and obviously anybody who has the Visions deck might not see it, but
yeah,
like
it's beautiful,
for instance,
though.
Thank you. So I had, you know, 100% cold foil, right?
And I had the light blue on top. Yeah.
Right. So I had the silver on the bottom.
Yeah.
But the problem was the color that was on top of the foil was at a different opacity than it needed to be for the color of the proper skin tone to come through. So in other words,
yeah, but like I know exactly what you mean. So normally you print at like 50% for cold foil to get the colors, and then they mute it a little bit. But the problem is like the skin tones are the hardest, and like unless you actually proof it, which is super expensive, you can't really proof cold foil.
Yeah, it was
like we can do it for like $1,000, but that's even like
that's crazy
expensive. Yeah,
and the thing. So here's the thing: is when I got on the screen, it looks great because you can't see the separation between the foil and the color and what it's actually going to print at, you know, especially cold
you need
foil,
someone with experience to tell you like, okay, this is going to be a slight blue, this is going to be, it's like, you need someone that really knows the process. Because cold foil is opposite of hot foil. It goes on first,
right?
Prints on first, and then you print on top all the other colors,
right?
Whereas hot foil, you print all the other colors and then take the sheets out and put them on a separate machine, and the cold foil gets stamped on top like an additive process, right? So, and the cold foil goes on much more accurately. It's like on the actual press, right? So it's at the first station on the press. So it goes on like it goes on kind of without heat. Actually, it's like almost like a glue, but.
Yeah, and it's interesting,
and it's different. Yeah, it's still totally different process. It's mainly used for like huge runs of cosmetic packaging. If you go and look at like perfumes, this is actually where you can get some ideas for packaging too. You go, if you're traveling, you go to duty free and go to the perfume section, and you'll see like all of that's pretty much cold foil, and like all the latest packaging advances are those products. So like I often look at them and go, "Ooh, that's a cool little thing." Like
that's so true. But a lot of people don't realize that. If they see a foil deck and it's red foil, it's not red like a cold foil. It's not red. It's silver, with just the color.
It's silver with printed red on top. Right. Exactly.
So it's interesting finding that out after you kind of start the process of learning about printing.
Yeah, and there's
Yep.
benefits to each. Like cold foil, you can do every artwork different on the sheet. It can be all different. Whereas hot foil, like I said, you can only do like the same back on all of them because we do sections. So there's all these little things. Like, yeah,
Crazy.
Like, you never know unless you start doing it. But
Yeah, we'll leave that up to you.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We provide like that. I love looking at artwork and thinking, how can I print this like the most beautiful way and cost effectively, and like give the customer a couple options. Like, here's if you want to go crazy. Here's if you want to be a bit more affordable. And this is what I think will look best. And we'll help you like set up the rest of the artwork. And that part about it's fun because like solving a problem like a puzzle each time, right? So yeah. So it's fun.
Yeah.
So what's one of the crazy? Just curious too, because I know a lot of what's been coming through from what I've been hearing from you is that you enjoy the challenge and the thinking about the evolution of what else you can do. What's something that, and you know, you also mentioned with one of the tuck boxes that you saw from a cigarillo box, and you're like, that would make an awesome tuck. What's something that you've always seen out there that you're like, man, I'd love to make this into a feature on a deck or a tuck box. You just haven't figured out yet.
I want to try like something really cool with like, I know that the Fontaine did that UV activated one, which was cool, that changed colors. And then also the Tempo one was really cool. I think it could be cool to like do a deck for a nightclub or something that had like, if the lights change and dark lights, and then there's something says like, you know, like hug your neighbor or something, or next person next to you or something fun. Like, cause we
that sounds like a hippie festival, bro.
yeah, that could be fun. But as far as that, I think that'd be a fun deck to kind of do. The thermographic inks are cool too, where they change in the sunlight. Look awesome.
I literally just Googled like thermochromic, which I was like, man, that would be really cool to see. But I bet you with those too, because a lot of times that seems to be a layer on top. It probably impacts the thickness unless you can figure out a way to like have.
We could make it a little thinner.
Yeah,
we can make it a little
Arc
thinner.
Just did it.
Yeah,
Arc just did it with their Tempo, their Tempo decks.
What?
It's possible. Oh, it changes in the sun.
Yeah, they're the Tempo edition. These ones.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, they're ahead of they're doing cool stuff.
Yeah, they're standard and they're this one. The Tempo Lab, and then the Tempo Classic.
Oh, that's right. You have to shine the light on, and it changes.
No, it does. It changes in the dark.
In
the sun, it changes kind of color.
Interesting.
That's
very
cool.
Interesting.
I remember we did that glow in the dark deck for Randy Butterfield years ago, like 8 years ago. But unfortunately, like the glow ink has like this like texture to it, and I told Randy like the cards are gonna like they're not gonna handle well at all. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. and then the deck was like that thick, and like but the uncut sheet is gorgeous. You turn out the lights and like all the bowling balls glow, and
that's cool.
That's really
cool. Dude, what about oh, damn, what was I just gonna say?
I think a color changing one, like if it's like a surfer themed thing, could be cool. Like the board changes or something, and you go outside and the deck card backs change, could be fun.
What about scratch and sniff decks?
I thought about that. Yeah, that could be cool. We played around with. I have we can do that. Hidden, not scratch and sniff. Sorry, the reveal thing where you scratch like a quarter and you can reveal.
Oh yeah. What about scratch and sniff though?
Scratch and sniff. Yeah, I also thought about it, and that could work. Back to the scent thing, like it could be fun. Like maybe for OPC or maybe for OPC or something. That'd be something suitable for their like make it better. Like one that actually, that could be fun.
Maybe you could try it on an upcoming deck that printed with you.
I mean, there's a lot of. Mainly, it's like the quality issues I like to focus on, but like also if I see a new idea, I'm like, ooh, I want to try it. Or
Jamie. Jamie says bacon scratch and sniff.
His name is there he is. That's hilarious.
Yeah, you know Jamie.
Yeah, some cool decks coming out soon for him. Yeah,
we're excited for him too, for sure.
Yeah.
And so, coming to this year, I think a lot of it's funny because I don't want to say like, oh, Legends has gained a real foothold this year, but I genuinely think going from a known brand, you've really amplified the visibility of Legends within, 2020, 2021. What was really your big focus for the brand during that time to help it grow so much?
I think I focused on the customers. Actually, I would listen to the customers a lot, and it was like they wanted a thinner stock. So I, spent a while, like over a year, researching that and trying to find something. Because I also, when COVID started, one of the paper manufacturers went out of business. I'm like, damn, I only have like, now I really need to like find alternate solutions for that, and so it kind of helped with that. But also listening to customers really helped, and like focusing more on that side of things. Being in the States helped. Being more in the States helped as well because of time differences and stuff. So it helped communicate better with customers. So I think those combined really helped. And then the fact that the new factory is pretty much all set up and good to go. And then I could print basic decks with no issue, right, anymore. Like after 4 years of working on it, like basic standard decks were fine. They're going to be perfect. Then it's just like, okay, iterating on that and making the quality, like little things better and better and better, right? Like, I don't know if you probably some stuff you don't even notice, like some of the decks have lamination on the interior of the white, just so it gives it that extra little bit of protection and dirt won't get on there as easily. And it's little things like that you just would never know unless like you really like care about cards and packaging.
Yeah. Now what size stock is it, like GSM wise? Is this like 350?
That's no, that's a 300.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, it's 300.
What makes it so sturdy? Is it the foil on it?
It's just the paper fibers. It's like a eucalyptus fiber, and it's like, yeah.
Oh, why doesn't it smell like eucalyptus? That'd be dope.
That'd be cool.
That's one of my
If you're looking
favorite
for your
scents.
scent, yeah, that's a subtle scent that I think most people like. That
Subtle.
also, well, I mean, in light ways, Steve, if you're sniffing a broken eucalyptus leaf, it's going to smell different than if you're using eucalyptus paper. So
it's like
for sure.
Yeah. But
that'd be dope.
But you never, yeah. But yeah, that was a big focus, and I think I really just decided like, okay, it's time. Like I really take it seriously, because the first 5 years is like, okay, I have a lot of decks, and they're selling okay, but I was still doing shows, and it was like, it was like one hand in the other, and both doing a little bit of both. And then now it's like, okay, like I'm really going to try to, make this something. And we're still really tiny, and I'm happy that it's boutique and small, because then I can focus on each customer. So ideally I'd not want to lose that kind of boutique feel, where it's like you can print a really, really beautiful custom deck, right? And it's like nothing else out there. So I want every project to be like amazing. So yeah, and then just we don't we're already printing a good number of decks a year. We don't really need to print more, but it could be a thing, maybe increase production. But right now we can print as many as we need to, pretty much. So
nice. Well, hopefully we can bring more your way, because we love what you do.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. And yeah.
We had some really good questions that actually came in.
I'd love
around
that.
The printing.
That'd be cool.
So let me pull some up here, because I want to see. Let me see here. Worst case, I have them here and I can read them off. But from Neural want to know: can we expect another collab similar to the one with Tattler? Any more Legends 852 in the pipeline as well?
Oh, good question. I am thinking of doing a reissue of the original 852 Legends, but like done with all the new technologies we have and the new papers and stuff, because that's
that would be awesome.
What started it all. And I want to do like a really fancy version with like wax paper and like all this cool box, and like really detailed printing, and maybe on Viper finish or something. So
nice.
Thinking about that. And there's an artwork from Stutzman that was an artwork before the first back design, but it was a more detailed version, and it's beautiful, but it's like really detailed. So now I think we can actually print that and make it look nice, and I'll know how to make it look good. And that'll be a fun one to reissue, maybe for like the 10th year anniversary or something like that. Like
nice.
Or a little bit more, but yeah, so that would be fun. What was the end of that question?
So the other one was you mentioned fashion brands earlier. Can we expect any more collabs like you had with Tattler?
Oh, the Tattler one was just for private like event they had, and that deck wasn't amazing. It was like really, really rushed with a different card company, so not the main one, but like we rushed it a bit. But like the stuff for Estee Lauder, those decks were amazing, and yes, we are printing more of those, but they're mainly for like mass market, like for their either gifts or VIP gifts or events, or sometimes they bundle it with like their makeup products and stuff. So because there are more of those. They're out there. You kind of gotta hunt and find them, like the Drew House deck with Justin Bieber. Like you wouldn't really know it was Legends unless maybe you knew the box or something. But like there are ones out there, and some are really, really rare. Like those sold out in like 5 seconds. But like
that's
it's like yeah, exactly. But no, they love the decks, and it's a fun deck too. Like all the court cards are like dogs and stuff. But yeah, there's decks like this out there that are printed for brands, and and they all have Legends on the box. So if you had bought it, you'd know. But like you might not know if it's just like you might not know. Because we don't like publicize all of those. Like we do a bunch of them, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so another great question that came in from Jamie here was, have you seen an increase in the amount of gilded decks that creators are requesting?
For sure, absolutely. Almost every project like that's on Kickstarter, people want them, and we can do it really affordably. A couple bucks each. So it makes sense too. It just takes a little longer because now we have an automated gilding machine actually that can do like 25 at once, but like it keeps them perfectly flat, shaves the sides, and then like it does the gilding. Whereas before it's like kind of done a lot by hand. So they're a bit more precise now, and a little faster we can do it. But it still takes a good like we got to tack on another 3 weeks to do gilding.
Oh wow.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
And so from a creator point of view for gilded decks especially, do you ever recommend thicker borders or anything like that based on the artwork for gilding?
We try to, and sometimes that'll be something that slips through, and then at the end we're like, oh, and then it's like, yeah, but we do. You should. You're right, because it can't. Yeah, but also the cool thing is if you have uneven borders, you can like kind of get it to where they're more even, but it's a lot of work. But it's better to just have thicker borders.
If anybody gets USPCC decks, they can send them to Legends, gild them,
shave off
and they'll fix them.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Just make sure they fix the right side.
The edges will become super smooth, and then
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah, huge number of people want gilded decks, and I can see why they're cool. I mean, it's quite a waste. The process is not that eco-friendly and stuff, but they look cool, and it feels quite premium. They're nice, but for me, I prefer just the clean deck without the gilding because it kind of could screw up the handling a little bit, but tiny little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's just a phase. To be honest, I think it'll definitely die down.
I think it's blown up, and it'll definitely. I don't think it'll ever go back to the rarity that it was before. But I do think you will see less than every campaign in the future doing it as well, just because it is an added expense, and I think a lot of times people don't really consider, what the impact of that is. If there's more gilded decks out there, there's less, more supply, less demand. It's eventually going to bring the retail price of gilded decks down. But at the end of the day, gilded decks still cost the same on the manufacturing side. So
right, exactly. And maybe there'll be a new technology that people want to use.
Wouldn't that be nice? Well, and that's what it is though too. I think, just like every other industry out there, there's trends, and who knows what the new trend is until it comes out, wink, wink. But you never really know. And so right now gilding is the hot thing. I'm sure if you look 3-4 years ago, there was something else that was really hot. And in another 3-4 years, there'll be something else. I think gilding just picked up fast in comparison to everything else, and that may burn it out a little quicker.
It's a great way to make money on a campaign. That's for sure.
Yeah, you can make more money, and it's and you could. We have pretty much any hot foil you can use for gilding, which is cool. So you have hundreds of choices.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Which is different than a gilder.
Yeah,
makes me think a clear hollow gilding would be cool.
That'd
be really cool.
That'd be really interesting as long as the sides weren't too roughed up where that like came through as like a visible aspect. You'd have to see how.
That'd be the thing we'd have to test and see if it actually does, but. I
bet it would look really cool though. I mean, the visual aspect of it would be amazing. And 9 times out of 10, people aren't using a gilded deck.
That'd be cool.
So,
and then would be really cool.
We had another question that came in from Patrick here, which was, what new projects are upcoming that we should keep our eyes peeled for?
Yeah, I think the new the Black Stratosphere, like the Starbase edition, I think it's going to be called, is going to be super cool because there's a bunch of new. It's like they're all black. They're awesome. And the cool thing is about with the full foil is you can print on you can use a black stock, and then put the full foil on it, and then print on normal colors on top. So you're not limited by because normally you can't print on black paper, for example, like this. This is done on black paper. If you could look on the inside, you can see.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So this is like the base paper. Then you can print like white, but this is white ink, and this is how it turns out, white ink, because it gets absorbed into especially on a matte paper, right? It'll get absorbed. We can run it through twice. It gets a little brighter, but
it actually looks really good, though.
Yeah,
it looks great. Yeah, for some cases it's perfect, and then the rest is hot foil, right? Like a subtle, like a kind of matte, almost matte hot foil. So you have to use that for the artwork elements. Whereas if you try to print like a red or a blue on this, it's just not going to work. I mean, because it gets absorbed right into the black paper. So the cool thing is if you laminate the tuck in this, we laminate the tuck to the full foil, and then you basically have a thin layer of like Mylar plastic, and then you print on that. So then it blocks out the black behind it. So then you get like a cool. You can still not have that gross like white edge you see like it's on like a yuck.
And that's going to be great with the new Black Stratosphere. That's one thing I hate about printing over white stock is that when you deal with them, they look like trash because the ink kind of bleeds on the other side and stuff like that. So if you're having a black stock, you're not going to have to worry about that problem, like that roughing that you're going to see white spots because it's.
You're exactly right. Yeah, and I think just printing on white paper is like a little bit, unless you have to but a lot of decks are darker these days, and you look at all the new. What are you guys' thoughts on the new Harry Potter decks and Beatles and all that?
I mean, I think it's dope.
Yeah,
the tucks are beautiful, right? Yeah.
The one thing I do have to say with a lot of this is I think there's a lot of I think it's great that we're seeing a lot of these collaborations with large movies, things like that. But I also think that in a lot of situations, the artwork style isn't necessarily doing as much justice, or the printing style isn't doing as much justice to them as they could. Harry Potter, I think, we know what to expect with Theory 11. I think they did a great job. They manage expectations as best they could with it. It would be interesting to see if someone else had gotten that licensing deal, how much further they would have taken it. I mean, we just talked about this last Friday with the Army of Darkness deck from Fontaine. Honestly, one of my favorite movies in the time, and I think they just dropped the ball with the deck itself because they use stills from the movie, and it's I'm really excited to see the world coming. And again, like you said, a lot of these companies do private commissions for VIP guests and things like this. Brands collaborating with playing cards are not a new thing, but I think it's interesting to see them becoming new releases to the collectors community specifically.
I think Fontaine was one of the first to really kind of bring that to the forefront and really harness the leverage of brand collabs, which is great. The amount of ones they've done is incredible. So, but as a super fan of Army of Darkness, if you're, it's hard.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's tough because you're like, oh, I wish I could have done it.
But again, they manage expectations there. You know what to expect with Fontaine because they're not a collector's brand. And that's, I think, where there's an interesting bleed here, too, because first off, the Tuck Box was the winner in my book for the Army of Darkness. I think the way you guys put together the Necronomicon with the writing on the sketching on the inside and the look of it was cool. Mind-blowing. But at the same time, I also wouldn't expect Fontaine to create a fully collector's hand-drawn deck, especially having seen what they did. Exactly. That's not what I expect from them. And so,
by the way, that would take 8 months of work.
Yes,
to do the artist to
and that's not their business model. And we saw it with the Halloween deck as well. And so, by no means is that a knock against Fontaine. They do what they do, and they do it extremely well. But it's same thing with Harry Potter. We know what to expect with Theory 11. No one's ever going to see foil on a Theory 11 deck on the cards themselves.
That's one thing I'm like, ooh, yes, we can do all that. It would be amazing with the Harry Potter deck with foil. And I was just like, oh, it's a shame.
Exactly. And so, go ahead.
Yeah. I think they're a bit I don't even they're really tied in with US playing cards, so they're not even like they don't even entertain the idea of printing with Legends or Card Mundi.
I mean, I think I have a totally different like thought process on, and not thought process. I don't want to say. I just want to say opinion. I think their business model is different. They don't care about the collector's side of it, and that's why every once in a while they'll trickle out. We're gonna give you a gold artisan at Target so you can go find it. We're gonna drop something for 24 hours.
Great distribution.
That's your collector's side. So, I mean, if you're doing a Harry Potter deck, the reach you're gonna have for that is stupid, right?
Well, yeah, because their target market isn't the collector's deck. Even with that, it's
so
the Harry Potter market. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, and the deck that they put out, it is perfect. All their decks are $10. So once you stop printing,
so when they're doing 100,000 print runs, it's like that's why they can do it at that price, right?
So, but where I disagree though is I think Harry Potter and Army of Darkness decks were two different scenarios though as well, because the Fontaine doesn't target the same way Theory 11 does. Theory 11 says, I have this huge, I have Avengers. I'm going to kick we're going to have deck collectors who get them. But really, I'm shooting for the Marvel market, or I'm shooting for the Harry Potter market, or I'm shooting for this market. Fontaine is still gearing pretty much solely towards
cardists,
to cardists and towards now a little bit with the collectors. So for the Army of Darkness deck, for them, they were targeting towards collectors and cardists on that one. They weren't saying, hey, I'm going to go out for the Army of Darkness base, because you can see where their marketing is. Their marketing isn't towards those niche,
they have a cool customer base. Like,
exactly. And and I think from that point of view, for them, it's a little bit different than Theory 11 in that sense. But again, they manage expectations. No one expects Fontaine to come out with a potential runner for Deck of the Year as it relates to collectors. Like, that's just not going to happen. And with that in mind, I think they've actually taken great strides to making their decks more custom in a really fun way. Like I said, the tuck on Army of Darkness was awesome. The back design was thoughtful. They really put a lot of thought into the way they did it that stayed in line with their brand. And so I would never knock a creator for what they create. But at the end of the day, my thought process, like you said, Lawrence, is like, ooh, what if someone else had gotten that collab? What if Fontaine hadn't had it, but someone else who then, came to Legends and said, this is my thought process. How would I do it? I mean, dude, if Lautrec or Lorenzo had an Army of Darkness licensing deal, like that would have been a whole different
100%,
deck.
100%.
And that's where, that's more so where my mind goes. Like, Fontaine didn't drop the ball. Fontaine created an amazing Fontaine deck, but as an Army of Darkness fan, it makes a different story to it. So it's tough.
If it means anything, Tyler and Steve hopefully will get this dope deck, and we'll bring it to Legends and see what we can create out.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, and I there's a couple I want to do with like some collabs with like that, and I would love to do some childhood stuff I liked and make it like really cool. Because like even the Star Wars one, you could see that like they're really nice. The packaging, the box is beautiful. It's like, oh, but you could have like, made a nice Sabak deck that was like properly like a Sabak deck, right? Like like if it was actually made for the Star Wars like universe, right? So it kind of can be disappointing, but also it's understandable. I mean, and Theory 11, they're really not doing tricks anymore, if you notice, right? So it's like they kind of have to do, they have to do these big things now. Is the only way they're going to really make revenue. And and BAME is a smart guy. He set up amazing distribution network, which took 10 years for him to probably develop all that, and now they sell everywhere, right? So he could probably just sell half, cover all the costs, and then just the rest is just gravy at that point.
I mean, how much is he paying per deck? 60 cents. He owns them.
No, it's more. No, definitely more. It's way more than that for sure.
I mean, I wouldn't doubt if he's paying tops. I mean, $1, because most not even crushed.
I think $1
for what the Theory 11 decks.
Yeah, probably $1.30, $1.50 is what I would guess, but maybe even a little more. But around there, I'm definitely under $2 per deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're printing 10,000 decks, if you're printing standard,
well, they print those. I think they print 50 to 100. Those.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you print 5,000 decks, it's like $1.15 or something.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
If it's a basic no foil, maybe, but those decks have like double foils, and like that's not it's not a cheap packaging, but but they're amazing, and I mean they are amazing, to be honest. And Fontaine and Zach's created an unbelievably cool like following with these guys that do amazing shuffle work, and and it's beautiful. It's honestly gorgeous, and there's nothing like it. And I can see how people want to buy them, even if like they seem quite basic, but it is a cool grungy street aesthetic, and these guys are doing cool shit that no one else is. I mean, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. So you can hate the brand or whatever, but it's like, yeah, if you do that cool stuff, you're gonna like the brand because that's who those kids are, and they're amazing.
And honestly, that's the one thing that I always say with this community is there's a deck for everybody. But that also means that not everyone's going to love every deck. And like, I've never understood that like hate against brands necessarily for their creative design. Like, again, you may not like Fontaines. That's cool. You don't buy Fontaines. But like the one thing I do have to say that I really like what Zach is doing, and I think he probably takes this from the book of Jaspers, we'll call it, is trying new designers or trying new printers. And again, like we just saw, like he's been doing a lot of new decks with Legends. He tried a few years ago as well with, I can't remember. Yeah, with decks. Like, first off,
I think that was just a timing thing, though. I don't think USPCC could.
But I think that's changing, though. What I'm saying is, I think he's starting to open up the market to people realizing that USPCC
he loves all
isn't.
Right. He loves all the new stuff we're doing, and I try to all my customers. I try to send out emails of like all the newest print stuff we're doing, and I'm really good with previous customers, and then like, do you want to learn the latest thing we're doing and you want to try it on a deck? And they're like, cool. And like, that's a great thing to have, just to try new stuff. And yeah, he is trying for sure.
And I think Jaspers really was one of the forefront runners on that whole thing, because Jaspers is always, I mean, he doesn't tell you who he's printing with, and he's always trying to print with someone new. And I think that helps people realize that like, it's not necessarily about the deck of cards, it's about what you can do with a deck of cards. And like, some are going to feel different than others, but like, get used to all of them. I mean,
that's fun. It's
fun.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's part of the challenge, because if you can do a move perfectly with a crushed USPCC stock, and then you go use a Legend stock and something's not hitting right with it, that means you get to rethink how you do it, how you do something, it helps.
Or maybe you can do other stuff better. Like if you're doing a lot of the flips and stuff, the crushed stock's not great. Like the USPCC stuff, you have to constantly cut and get a new card. But the Legend stuff, it's just different. It's just they all have different use cases, and yeah.
And so a great question in line with that, Kelsey wanted to know, will Legends ever make their own paper stock? And so I think there's a kind of a two-part kind of explanation to this, because ultimately, you guys can custom order your own stock, and I think that's one way to look at it. But also, probably the business of actually manufacturing paper itself is probably outside of the ballpark of most of these printing companies, just because it's in itself such a detailed and in-depth industry as well.
Yeah, and I don't even use playing card, right? They laminate their papers, but like the past 10 years or so. But before, like the old Blue Seal decks, they weren't, and they would just buy the paper, right? So I believe. And then the cool thing is, it's like it's probably impossible. I've always dreamed of it, of course, but I'm as close as I can get to that. Maybe it's like where I can have good relationships with existing paper manufacturers. Not all of them had paid paper stock in the past for cards, but and then I can customize it and tweak it to exactly what I need, whether it be like the humidity resistance or the snap, the feel, the weight of the paper. And then, of course, all the coatings that are applied after are completely custom as well. So it's as close as you can get to like that. I mean, these paper factories are billions of dollars. They cost more than you could buy an entire US playing card over 10 times for, or like a bunch of times for the price of one paper factory, right? So like they're expensive. So there's not many in the world, and there's not many that are and they do it very well, right? So and we're as close as we can get to custom. I always say the Viper finish is the closest, the most custom paper we've got, and the most kind of unique and special and different in the past, I would say like 10 years. But so I'm really trying to like work with that more and make sure that's like promoted a lot, because I think it's great and it handles really well. And it's soft enough but not too soft. It's really thin, but we don't have to crush it. The only thing is like the embossing pattern is a little bit like, it's a little bit more like textury, but not as bad as some different than some other brands that have a deeper embossing. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
I love
but
how you're
like,
trying to be PC about that.
yeah. But no, that's personal taste, to be honest. But
Right.
but actually that pattern that the cards are embossed does help the way they feel, so I don't want to like mess with it too much. And it's not different enough to where it's super noticeable. The shine on the cards could be a little bit. Remember Shin Lim was saying too, he was like, they could be a little I think it was Shin or Patrick Kuhn saying maybe for stage work it'd be a little too shiny for big lot of lights and production and stuff. So might work on that. But like in general, I'm really happy with that stock, and I worked really hard on that like a year and a half to try to get that. So and now I'm glad it's doing well and more people want to print on it. So
yeah, it's dope. I love it.
Yeah.
And so another question. Oh, good.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say
That's
we had
it?
actually another question that came in here, which I think now that makes sense. Where did it just go? Here we go. This is a tough one because I feel like the answer is like anything that did big. But Nora wants to know, what are some of the projects that you wish were printed with LPCC?
Oh, well, like I remember a couple of years ago, I saw those Meadowlark decks, and I was like, "Damn!" Like those first one, like those are just so nice, and like it's like, I would have done like this and this a little better and nicer. And then luckily, like a design competition and got to meet Jonathan, and then we started working together and like hit it off right away. And now like doing a lot of their decks, and so I was like super thankful for that. And like I just love good artwork and design. Like I particularly like that style of engraved look, like Stutzman style. And I mean, I can appreciate other stuff, but that's like what I like. So
that's the same guy. That's the same guy who did the Star Wars deck.
Oh, really?
Russ Gray did the Meadowlark original. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was one of the guys that did.
Well,
you know, these are beautiful. And then like we have great collaboration. Like when you have a good working relationship, I'll be like, well, let's try green foil on that. He's like, oh, I didn't think of that. And so we tried, it looks cool. And then, you know, and then that's the fun thing about nice collaborations. It's like the product ends up better, you know, a lot better. And so I'm super pumped to be printing their stuff. And like I think too, some of those, the big, super big ones, I think it would really change Legends if we did a deck like the Star Wars deck. I'm not sure. Not that we couldn't handle the printing, it'd be easy, but it's like we would get probably 100 requests a day for decks then. We already get more than we can handle almost. So it's like, I'm not sure if it would be a good thing. Of course it you know, but I don't know what would happen in that case, but it would be fun to try to print some of those maybe for like print them for Theory 11 rather than like Legends being the one doing it. That could be cool. Because like essentially we're a printing company and I do some in-house decks that promote new stuff, but I'm not trying to like, you know, this right now at least print like a deck that sells 1 million of it. I guess it would be great, but like that's not really my expertise. So but yeah, I guess those would be the few things.
Nice.
How about you guys? What decks? What have you really liked the past year?
Out of Legends?
Well, I mean, just in general, like decks that like your favorites, because you always have the one you kind of go back to, and you're like, I really like that.
That's a tough question too, because I feel like Steve and I
well,
see a lot of we see so many decks, and it's not even so much that like I couldn't pick some. I can definitely pick some, but I think like if someone was like, "Oh, what are your top 10 this year?" I think I need like a list of like 35, and like that's the problem. I'd say one of the best ones I've seen recently, and I'll shout this out every single time, is Alice in Wonderland from Jackson. I think
beautiful.
This took his artwork and his production to the next level, and he's always been a top tier kind of guy. So for me, that one was amazing. I really like,
and you can see his skills evolve too as far as packaging goes from the early decks. Like early decks,
100%.
It just printed just a flat color, and then he added a little foil, and then added embossing, then three. You know, it's slowly like you learn, right? So
yeah. I think he did amazing there. I think another big one for me was obviously was this last year or this year? I can't remember now. The Tale of the Tempest. And then the
I guess 2021. Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, it was 2020. So that was last year.
No, 2021 maybe. I don't even remember.
Eye of the Ocean from Lorenzo. I'm super pumped on that one because I think the idea of including a book with something. And here's what I've come to realize over time too. I love cards. They're amazing. They're fun. But what I want to see is innovative innovative ideas brought to the community more and more so. And I think the idea of collaborating with authors to bring a book to tell the story of the cards is
That'd be
brilliant.
cool.
You know, I hope to see more people do that in the future. And we've seen some decks do it with comics and things like that in the past.
Yes, that comic one I saw. Yeah,
Exactly. And I love that aspect of it because for me, at the end of the day, the artwork on the deck of the cards is beautiful. If I love it, I love it. If I hate it, I hate it. But I want to see all the other fun stuff that they can bring to it that expands the community into other reaches. So that was a big one for me as well. I really like the
that's
Oddfellows
smart.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I like again, Lorenzo, I think is really pushing well with that. He did
yeah.
the Oddfellow and he just had the beer collab around that. I think it's brilliant as well.
Smart.
There's
Yeah,
just
that one
so
was
many
fun.
and
Yeah.
I think this year there were so many great decks because people had the time with the pandemic last year to really put the focus in there and be like, how do we make this stand out even more? And I love the fact that people are starting to think outside the box for a lot of that. I mean, those are three off the top of my head, but honestly, if I looked around my room here, there's probably a half
Yeah,
dozen more. I love.
that are just sitting around. Your
Yeah, I
bed's
mean,
probably full cards and yeah, there's cards everywhere.
there really
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
And the reason I forget some of them isn't
yeah.
even so much because they don't deserve it, but because they're piled under other
Boxes
cards.
now,
Yeah, like
yeah. I
they're
travel
just
like with
everywhere.
these.
And
They're awesome.
That's
this year was
awesome.
a big one, though. This year was a big one. So
Yeah,
I'm
and I think
excited.
it depends. For me, it depends on the use of it, right? You know, I have my collector side, which is like, yeah, you know, the Lorenzo, the Lautrec, you know, the Crypt deck was next level. You know, you got Jackson coming out with amazing decks all the freaking time, but you know, his Alice in Wonderland was, you know, epic. You know, my everyday stuff that I play with is like I really enjoy Nox. You know, the new
Yeah.
luxury Nox, the first
Yeah,
edition.
they're nice.
They're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
cool.
Cool foiled,
You know,
I think. Yeah.
they're classy.
Yeah, you can't go too wrong with Knots, to be honest. I mean, that's $1 million industry now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know,
business,
he sells more decks than, you know, anyone other than Theory 11.
I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I think back like 5-6 years ago, they sold a ton. I think now I guess, yeah, they do still sell a ton. How many editions do they have? They must have hundreds now.
Oh, I mean, they have a ton of them. Their originals will always sell because they're just stupid cheap.
Yeah,
and they're geared towards magicians, so they're everyday carries. And
that's a good point. They're an affordable deck. That's one thing I'd like to have, a more standard deck for Legends that magicians could just always buy, and it's like $4. And
yeah,
I was thinking about doing that on the Viper finish and like printing a lot of them, making them super cheap and just easy. Maybe make it Amazon link so that you can just get them in like a second. And
yeah, I mean, that's dope.
Yeah,
I think that's super key. You know, I mean, was it Bacopo did it with their steel decks?
The Superiors were really popular too, and that was on our classic paper, like printed in Taiwan, the first ones, and those did well. And so yeah, it could be something. I mean, I don't think it's just so hard to compete with Bicycle on that level, though, is the problem.
But those are ugly as sin. I mean, and I think, of course, you're not going to compete. That's not the point, right?
Right.
The point is to just hit a market that isn't there yet. And, you know, I mean, Theory 11 hit it, obviously. They have really pretty decks, you know, obviously not your Star Wars or your Harry Potter, but your decks that aren't customized, so to speak. But the Monarchs, you know,
Monarchs, I mean, that was the first. Yeah, they were the first to almost become a standard deck, kind of, right?
So, and I mean, it's a staple in everybody's collection, right? If you don't have a Monarch,
yeah, I have a bunch. Yeah,
if you don't have a Monarch, you're not a collector. You know, it's like for the most part, you know, that's usually your first deck. You get a Nock, you get a Monarch, and then all of a sudden you're collecting decks.
It's like getting a Rolex. If you buy watches, you kind of have to have one of them.
Yeah, and
I mean,
I remember when I first started collecting cards. You know, I got into it, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and I'm like, cool, I can buy a Nock deck for $6.
Yeah,
you know? And I could play with
exactly. And that's why, even Zach at Fontaine is like, he wants his deck to be somewhat affordable. Like he tries, you know, so he's not trying to like mark them up like crazy for the most part. He wants these kids to be able to buy them, and I respect that. So
no, 100%. I think what Zach does is great. You know, he tries to keep them at $15. Let's be honest. You know, a lot of his decks he can't put at that because, you know, they're holographic. They're all super custom, and they're collaboration deals that he has to pay for or whatever. But most of his decks are just standard tuck. He could put them at $10 and still make a killing off it. But, besides that, it's just, the market is what the market is. And a lot of, Zach's brand, which is great, is, his definitely is a reseller's brand and a reseller's deck, and I think a lot of people who purchase his stuff are reselling
to resell it.
Yeah, that's the only reason why they're buying it. And, a lot of people,
they're buying it. I mean, anything could be a reseller. They're buying it because it's popular too. So
it's that hype mentality.
Like anything could be resold for more, but it has to first be popular. So it is popular first. And
no, for 100%. And I think where his brand was and where it is now are two totally different places. I think now, because he has gained that popularity, now it's become like a, obvious. You can look before people even get the decks, they're for sale on eBay. People are like, message,
they list it,
order confirmed, and it's like, you haven't even got the decks yet, bro. Like, slow down. But I mean, it's all, it's so interesting. A lot of, I think people, there's so many decks that came out within this COVID time period too. I think everyone had so much time on their hands, and people creating multiple decks. And Tyler and I have seen so many decks on Kickstarter, even now, where normally things die down. They are dying down a little, but they're not as much as they did last year.
Yeah, we're not getting weeks where you have 20 new decks, but this week there's 8 new decks. At this time last year, there were maybe 3 or 4, and out of those 3 or 4, you'd be lucky if 1 funded. It's a tough time of year, so the amount of decks was crazy. Neural raises a good point here too. Penguin did that this year. COVID was a blessing for them. Couldn't agree more. And I think, with Kevin's help there, they've done a phenomenal job really creating some fun decks this year. Those are some of the decks that I'd throw in my list of, the top 35 this year too, because I think they branched out into an area that most people don't go. They went with the spacecraft. It had a very childlike theme, but it was fun. Such a cool idea, really. And they've really tried to make their decks fun this year. And I think that's that was a great direction for them, because it got them a little credibility that they probably didn't have before. So I really think that, as much as people are going to be out there saying, oh my God, there's too many gilded decks now, and I wouldn't disagree. I think that for all of the things that people necessarily don't like about the community right now with playing card production, there are 1,000 other things that came out that are so much better than they were even 2-3 years ago, because of all of this drive to print new decks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you take 10 decks from 10 years ago and 10 decks from this year, I mean, it's night and day how much. Without even looking at Legends versus whatever, it's like the whole bar has been raised, right? I think Jackson helped a lot with that. The Monarchs maybe were the first with a nice tuck that was a little bit elegant, and some of that simple line work that was good. But and it's cool to see how the industry evolves and the people's tastes evolve, but also just in general, the quality goes up by a significant amount each year. But you don't really notice it until you look 5 years back, or even a few years back. The standards, the bar keeps getting raised. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, and it's funny because I think a lot of people in the community don't see it, because they don't understand it or comprehend what has gone into it, because I don't think a lot of people talk about that process. So, obviously thank you for coming on to explain it and talk about it. But when most people get a deck of cards, they look at it and they're like, oh, cool, it has foil on it. And, and that's pretty much it. And they're like, okay, it fans differently, which is cool. Some foil, I won't name it, some foil like Metalux doesn't really foil very well. Fan very well.
It doesn't handle great.
And it's choppy when you look at the foil.
Oh my God, the detail 100%. On Metalux is, you know what? I'm a firm believer, and this again is not necessarily a knock against USPCC, but they know that's not where their revenue comes from. And so they only devoted enough time to be competitive there, but not to be a leader in it, because it doesn't make money for them.
So I'd love to
they
see
just
David
wanted
Blaine.
To kind of,
I'd love to see David print on a freaking Legends. A Gator back on Legends would be
gorgeous.
so dope.
You might be surprised.
Dude, that's so exciting.
So like about a year ago, Blaine came to me and he wanted to work on a new kind of brand concept, and he wanted me to come in as an equity partner on a new deal.
Nice.
So now that the deal's all done, and we have a new brand like run by him called Red Black Ink, and we're going to
nice.
You can spell it. It's spelled INC, but I believe it works with INK, and it's a website that we're going to release like really kind of rare decks.
He just released his first one recently on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like a printing from before, but there's some really cool stuff coming out.
Awesome.
And
That's exciting.
I mean, it's a ton of work on my end, but like there's now a good team of like 5 of us that are really starting to work hard and think about this on a slightly different level than Theory 11 and Penguin and all the other competitors out there. We're trying to do something different. So, it's taking time to kind of get off the ground, but there will be, I think, some really fun stuff you guys are.
That's exciting. Well, we were literally just talking about having a big company that like hops on with Legends, and boom, you're like, oh, David Blaine.
So Blaine, the thing is, he has the reach and a good customer base, and now that we can organize a bit, and I made these clips for him years ago, and he loved these, like, to source them, and my friends helped make these carbon fiber clips, and they're unbelievable. They're super lightweight, and like they're coated in alligator and stuff. And not a lot of people know we make these amazing titanium ones too that took like a year to make, and ultra thin. They're like $150, but there's like nothing can compare, like solid titanium. And it's not like they're coated in a veneer of carbon fiber. They're like actual solid carbon fiber. So
which is not cheap. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're not cheap, but like we're never really going to remake them probably. But that was like a really fun challenge to make like the best card clip out there. And I do love manufacturing and sourcing other products like that too. And there will be some of that with the new Blaine Red Black Ink. So I'm super excited to be working on that. And there should be some cool stuff coming.
Nice.
That's
and
exciting.
Neural want to know, when is the next Red Black Ink drop? And he had no idea that LPCC was involved with that.
Yeah. So I can't say exactly.
I was just gonna say, I don't think
sometime in the near future. Sometime in the near future. And he wants to know, will there be international shipping?
Yes, we are trying to do that, and we've set up a new fulfillment partner that's gonna handle that much better, ideally. So
nice.
We want it to be a worldwide customer base, and because there's people that love cards and nice products all around the world, and it's unfair really to just ship to the States. So it's just sometimes it can be really hard with US fulfillment houses to do that, just because the shipping is just crazy. It's like $30 to ship a $10 deck. So it's like, it's not that we don't want to, but but we are working on that. So.
Right. Awesome. We're excited.
Yeah.
And then we did have one other question that came in from Jamie, who just had to dip out, but I want to get this in here before we forget it. And he said, do you have any plans to be involved with the Deck of the Year Awards again this year?
I haven't heard much on that yet, but I'm always down. Yeah, of course. Always happy to support that. And like, dude, why not? Yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Lawrence, I have to say, I think so much knowledge has been dropped in today's episode. I'm like, I'm reeling with all the information that you've given out here. And I really do love the fact that you are so open and accessible, and the fact that you are so on the ground as well with your brand. In this day and age, obviously for anyone who knows, dealing with USPC or CC or Cartamundi, you're dealing with, a representative of their custom division. Obviously, you're not talking to the person who runs the thing, behind the scenes, but you are the person who runs things behind the scenes.
It's a bit of both. So
I love that aspect of it too, because at the end of the day, knowing that you are as involved on the ground level as you are at the strategic level, and seeing what you've done, first off, I think it's immensely impressive, but also I think it really adds that personal touch to it. And I'm so glad that we were able to come on. We had a bunch of people come into chat today and say, oh man, I've talked to Lawrence over DM or over email, and I never knew what he looked like. It's so cool to finally see what he looks like. So
that's amazing. No, we should do this more for sure. And like, I can talk about cards all day. Text me if you have obscure questions or anything, just text me, and we'll do another maybe with the Stratosphere, that black, ultra black Stratosphere thing comes out, that'd be cool to talk about. Maybe we can do it at the same time as this Palms Oracle, because there's some cool stuff.
We'll do a live with 100%.
Would love to, man. Yeah, because I think I'm really, and I've said this to Steve a million times, and I've said this across the board. I think Legends has had a major shift in the way they're viewed this year. And I'm sure that, that wasn't just like something clicked this year and it happened. I'm sure you've had this in the works for years and it's been a lot of effort to get there. But I think this year brought you to a next level. And I'm so excited to see what goes forward, man. I think the potential is limitless there. And I'm excited for it. I think, Steve and I have talked about it. We see a lot of decks, we see a lot of brands, we see a lot of the interactions here. And I think at the end of the day, the customer service you provide, the quality you provide, and just the level of effort you put into it, it shows through. It makes it really that much more meaningful to, I think, the creators involved in the process. At the end of the day, the person who buys the deck isn't necessarily the one who knows all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. But I think from the creator's point of view, you've made an experience that they can't get at most other places while still providing them a reasonably priced service, which is tough to find this day. So, big kudos to you on that one. Neural even says here, I'm using LPCC next year.
Oh, thank you, man.
I think that you're gonna butt up to the whole, oh man, we need to be more selective with our printing a lot quicker than you'd probably anticipate, just based on how great you've done this year. And who knows, you may be there already, but I think you have a lot of potential that you're tapping into this year. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, and we're trying to improve. I got another full-time staff coming soon that's really knowledgeable, and hopefully get those. We're trying to reply to every email within like a couple days. So it's like, but it's coming along, and making nice stuff isn't easy, and just be a little patient, but really trying to make things more efficient and better, and still allow for that kind of personal touch, right, in every project.
People don't realize that responding to emails is literally 2, 3, 4 person full-time job.
So it's a lot. Yeah. And I mean, I work flat out. I did it a lot too. So, it's fun though for me. And I really appreciate it, you guys. I mean, I love what you're doing, and I can't wait to be on again and do some more deep dives.
Absolutely, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, stick around afterwards. Everyone who's tuned in this week, we're really excited. Thank you so much for sticking around. We really do appreciate each and every one of your support. We have a really fun guest next week as well. So for everyone, Steve, why don't you tell everybody who's going to be on next week?
We have the amazing magician, Adam Wilba.
Dude, nice. Adam is a phenomenal magician. So for anyone who doesn't know him, make sure to tune in next week. It's going to be a really exciting episode. And for anyone out there who's thinking about creating a deck of cards and really wants to go to that next level, I cannot highly enough recommend Legends playing cards. So reach out to Lawrence, reach out to the team there. Come with full design in hand, so you're ready to go.
It helps.
But also, like, really, I want to reiterate this. In this year, I think it's gone from being USPCC and Cardamundi to USPCC, Cardamundi, and Legends, and that's no bullshit. I really think you've brought yourself to the tier
Tyler swore for you.
I mean, I swear all the time, but but for real, like I think you've stepped up to a point where you're, and again, not that you were never in that league, but like you're in that league from a visibility point of view as well. And I'm excited to see how things pop off, because
the quality just slowly evolved, and then most overnight successes take 10 years, but it's not even I mean, it's still very small. We're very, very small. And
you should be proud, dude. 100%.
You should
be damn proud of yourself.
This is your breakout year, and I think going forward it's going to be even better. So for everyone out there who's looking to do a playing card project, make sure to check out Legend Playing Card. Follow them on Instagram. All the links are down below. We appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure to keep an eye on the channel as well, because we're going to be announcing some really fun stuff related to our 24-hour episode coming up on December 18th and 19th this year. There may be some fun stuff involved with Legends as well, so you're gonna have to tune in and find out. We hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we will see you all for some fun stuff tomorrow, actually. So make sure to tune in tomorrow for a really interesting one. Keep an eye out as well there. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Peace out.
See you guys. Bye.